Traditional strategies, they don't work anymore.
AI is making decisions faster than we can understand them.
Everyone's selling answers. Nobody has the truth.
Disruption isn't coming. It's already here.
Who's willing to cut through the bullshit?
All right, so that's our new intro. I got a little bit of a black cut there at the end I got to remove, but that's pretty interesting. The whole entire thing, for you guys who don't know, is made with AI. So I used it, Google VO3 and Flow, prompted everything. The whole Outwired song is done with Suno, as has been done for a while. What do you think, Ari? Was that good?
Yeah, although I'm not sure if it was on my end or not, and maybe this is foretelling of what's to come. It was muting at certain random points. Was it a clear stream for you guys?
Yeah, it was clear.
No, it glitched a little bit for me too.
Oh,
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, it's clear for
I
me.
just figured out if that was the snowstorm here or something else.
Well, then we'll have our big reveal next week. Then we'll figure that out. But yeah, it played fine for me over here. Maybe it's just the codecs or whatever that I have to dumb it down a little bit in 720 or something. So, but yeah, super excited to be here. And I always wondered, like, I the one thing about doing this show live that I hate. I don't really hate it. I dislike it. Is like you've watched Peter Diamandis' show. You watched all these podcasts that are like 2 hours long, Tom Billio, et cetera, et cetera. They always have these, Dyer, the CEO, they always have these great clips at the beginning that hook you, like something amazing that Scott or Ari or Brian said during the show, because they film them, they tape them, they edit them, and then they can put these really impactful clips in the beginning. And then you know that you're going to watch something exciting because you're like, you know, the most impactful thing that I heard about AI was, and then they just cut them off, and then they go to the intro, and they're like, "Fuck, you got to watch the show now."
Survive the world, you must.
But at least you know something good's coming. Here, you just have to watch a show. Like, it might be good, it might be total crap. You don't know until you watch the show. There's no, yeah. So I don't know where the bar is going to go here. But anyway, welcome. Super excited to have Ari, our first guest here on the show. I'm going to let Ari. We're going to talk a lot about Ari's background today, his glamping resort, his background with AI, some of the cool things that he's doing. Obviously, Scott Barr here as well. And you know, I think typically how we start these shows, Ari, is we kind of say, "Is there, you know, what happened in your last week that was interesting to you?" That you think is something that we should be talking about. So, Scott, do you want to go first, or Ari, or?
Yeah, I can go first. Yeah, I think, you know, excuse me, for me, the really this time of year, looking at the wrap up, I'm not going to come out with any top 10 lists, by the way, just so everybody knows that.
What about a top 5 list?
I could. Well,
don't threaten us. Do it, man. Come on.
Top 5 things that pissed me off this year, but they would all include one project, by the way, I think.
Okay, maybe not.
I had,
for the sake of your business.
I was just telling my son earlier today about this year I probably had the worst project of my entire career. And I've been doing this for a long time, but it was the worst project of my entire career. And that's kind of what I think about the year. It's like this big beacon out there that just hangs, because I overanalyze it, obviously, but I think about it a lot, like everything. And it was chaos. It was just chaos. And I hate to admit that, because of what I do, but it happened, and I can't not address it or talk about it. I have to, you know what I mean? It's like,
we've all had that, right?
Yeah.
Those projects.
But what I've thought about a lot was how much it stressed me out. Like, normally that kind of stuff, it doesn't really stress me that much, just because it happens. But this one, really, really stressed me out. So,
And there's a price for that too, right? Like there's the when you get that, like when you're starting a new business and you don't have any income, then you have to take often what you have to take to get to where you are. Once you've built the business and you have the clients, then it becomes a sort of, I can pick and choose at some point. And then you realize, I think at that time, that some of the people that you're taking are like, there's a cost to it. Like there's the check they're going to write you and the cost it costs you and the margin you're getting from the business. But there's also a cost to how much are they asking? How needy are they? How much stress are they causing me? How much are they asking over and above for what they have? And I think that there's a cost to that too that's often not factored into the dollar amount in the margins, is there?
absolutely. And then this one, it snuck up on me. It really did, and it smacked me upside the head. And that's okay. It's one of those things too where you got to kind of trust yourself. When I took this work, I had there was stuff about it that bothered me, but I took it anyway. And I normally don't do that, but I did anyway. That's what I thought about this week. But I'm honestly, what I really think about the most is what's coming in 2026. Got a lot of new stuff coming up. Some really cool metrics and measurements that we're going to really dig into. We're, as you know, Brian, and I don't know, Ari, if you read the annual outdoor hospitality report we do with KOA, we're getting ready to launch that again at the first of the year, and I think we're going to add some new types of content areas to it, and I'm taking that kind of a different angle on a couple topics. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at this moment.
All right.
Cool. I think I had a very parallel experience. The year in general, absolute, like, I don't know, pandemonium, is that the right word? It just, like, there wasn't a moment to breathe. And that was both awesome and incredibly frustrating because, we work on linear time and these things are happening in a super linear way. So it's like just the ability to absorb the benefits of what is being delivered. I don't feel like I even have enough time to. It's like, imagine Christmas and the gifts never end. You don't even have time to go play with the old gifts before you got to open up something new, and the new thing is probably better than the thing you have. But it's like it reminded me of that, like, Twilight Zone, where you could hit a button and like get $1 million. I think it's Twilight Zone, something like that, and some unknown person would die, but you get $1 million. You would never know them, and then the trick of it was, that box would, if you selected that box, would go to somebody else who could. It's like, I don't know when are we at a point where I can just take a hold of some set of capabilities and just build cool things with them without thinking, oh, this is going, if I just wait one more week, I'll be able to do this 10 times faster. But a lot of great and like disruptive and chaotic things. And I also, even in terms of like clients, like there was a really I had to pull a client away from like the quantum computing hype, which like they want, and they have this it's a really cool team of folks, and they're looking to do some really, really cool stuff. And I could tell it was like an investor driven, like, injections, like, do all this really legitimate stuff, but then let's also throw quantum computing in here for no really good reason. And so,
and of course, stock is up this year, and we need to get the attention. Yeah,
the investor was on the call to it. I was like, "This was you, right?" Like, I know if even if he saw us, he's a really cool dude. Like, I knew that was him doing it. He's like, "Yeah, there was so a lot of that, not just with quantum computing, but just happens when you hit like topics like AGI, ASI, quantum computing, robotics. Like, you have your element of reality, and that's an incredible element. But then you got this wild hype cycle, and figuring out where that sort of like hyperplane is between reality and like sci-fi and just utter gibberish, really, really hard for a lot of folks to discern. And even people who are like living and breathing in this stuff, I think it's really challenging. But anyway, to bring it to the more concrete, answer. So we have seen like the just this last week, like the frontier models, like they are really just getting, like, you can notice how much better they're getting. And I don't just mean for like coding, but for just general purpose workloads. MCP it's not breaking as frequently as it did before. So I'm thrilled about that because you can we're you know we're building enterprise grade solutions on MCP, and you still have to put a lot of scaffolding around it, almost like just to keep it from like failing out. So it's not as robust as you'd like it, but you can make it robust, and soon in and of itself it will be robust. And we're seeing great advancements there, and so that's been exciting for me, and because it's affecting our work. Robotics is just, yeah, it just crossed like another usability threshold, which was awesome. Like I don't know if you saw that they demonstrated. I don't remember where this. I'll follow up this video, but like there was a demonstration of like these humanoid platforms that were doing like they were actually working reliably in like warehouses and like in hospitality environments. It wasn't like flashy, just it worked, and that's exactly like what we've been like looking for. Like I cannot wait to just put robots invisibly.
And everything. Yeah, I don't know if I saw that video, but I saw Figure 3 where they did that demo of Figure 3 and they showed him behind the hotel desk and doing the waiter stuff. And
Yeah, I
really
thought
cool.
that was a little more. That was cool. But I don't. I'm looking. I'm thinking more. I think this one came out of China because it was more programmable.
Okay.
So but yeah, all just great stuff happening and totally unrelated to robotics and whatnot. But longevity, which is another passion of mine, is like where cellular reprogramming is. AI driven cellular reprogramming is actually happening. It's early, but it reinforces this idea that if we can just that it's entirely feasible that within all of our lifetimes we'll be able, or I believe it's feasible with the advancements that I'm seeing, that we'll be able to gain 2 seconds for every 1 second of life we live,
That'll
which is
happen in less than 10 years.
immortality. I don't doubt that that's possible within that time frame, actually. So
Yeah.
exciting
Oh, I'm
stuff.
big into longevity too. Scott and I frequently will play things on TV that we don't have any business talking about in real life. So I have no problem playing doctor on TV, and as long as we have a disclaimer that says don't actually listen to the bullshit that's coming out of our
Yes,
mouth.
don't take any investing advice or health
Yeah.
advice from any of us.
Or
We're
any
totally
kind of advice
unqualified.
whatsoever, just nothing. Just listen and consume and forget when you're done. So yeah, but I'm with you. Like, I mean, it's been a roller coaster year. The same thing. Like, I mean, I still remember like building early like crude agents in like a Zapier or an N8N or something like that, and then like the technology moves so fast that you're like, shit, I just built this last week and now I got to change it all again. And now I got to change it next week. And now I just want to pause and wait and build something really cool and have it be cool for like 2 weeks instead of 1 week. And so, yeah, I'm with you there. But I think we're never going to get our wish granted.
Yeah, no, this is the slowest it's going to be, barring some, cataclysmic event or, some like world stopping type of COVID scenario, whatever. I mean, even that, it would just be a slight pause, honestly, at this point, with so much, we're like comfortable with remote work. So even if there was some kind of global shutdown, whether biological, chemical, nuclear, AI driven, cyber, whatever, I don't know that the workflow that's driving all these innovations would really slow down that much.
I think it'd have to be like a massive solar flare that killed everything.
Yeah, exactly. We got to we need an EMP that just blankets the planet and just says, all right, you know what, live in 1950s again. But we, like the three of us already have enough knowledge you can't unknow what we know how to do.
Yeah.
What was incredibly difficult or impossible 10, 15 years ago is now something that we have intimate knowledge of. And so it wouldn't take many people to reproduce some of the key capabilities that we already have. And a lot of people, I imagine, have their own home labs running their own intelligence already. So it's kind of, can't put that genie back in the bottle.
I need to find my sugar daddy billionaire who will let me in the bunker for what I know.
I'll work on that. I'm building the bunker, but I'm doing it on a pauper's budget. Like I need to get a couple billion so I could start drilling down and getting all the goodness. But it's a fun project to do personally. So slow is okay.
All right. Well, I think let's start off by I'm interested in, before you introduce yourself, Ari, and, talk about all your background and get into all the cool things that you've done at your property and things like that, which I definitely want to cover today, being your first time on the show. I'd love to just hear this open-ended question. I'm going to throw you maybe a softball that's really hard depending on how you take it.
Sure.
What do you think is the one thing our audience that is comprised mostly of campground owners, operators, glamping resort owners, people like that should know about AI?
that it is so much more accessible and approachable and easy to use than you might possibly believe, especially after what the three of us just discussed for the last X number of minutes. Ignore all of that relative to using effective AI to solve real world problems. It is wildly simple. I mean, you just need to find, I'll just keep picking on us, just find one Brian, Ari, or Scott and make them your friend, and they'll accomplish what would have taken a team of like 10 or 15 people and like months you can do in weeks, sometimes days. I'm not exaggerating when I say that this stuff has become so easy to work with and integrate with and to leverage in ways that actually deliver value. It's at this point, it's almost like when we were referring to this a few minutes ago, like, yeah, the chaotic pace of change. Well, for those of us that have to live more on like sort of cutting edge of this stuff, yeah, it's chaotic. But if you're somebody who's like an STR operator, you're doing glamping, a glamping business, the all you have to do is say, I need to solve this problem, and there is some way to solve it using technology that will not be nearly as expensive as you thought it was going to be, and will be far more capable than you thought possible. And that's what, like I said, any of the three of us or the thousands of people like us out there who have like these skills to build these kind of solutions, like you cannot, I can't even overstate how much better, more efficient, more performant, more personalized to your guests that you can make your business just by wrapping yourself in a cloak of AI versus like looking at it as just sort of a tangential maybe add on to your business. So yeah, just recognize that you don't have to know anything as long as you can find somebody who does know something, and it's not going to be some massive budget or time that you're going to have to incur in order to get value out of it, as long as you find somebody who's qualified.
And I think that's what like we try to drill home to the audience here is like, yes, we cover MCP servers. Yes, we cover all the things that you talked about. But also I want to ground people in the fact that like you just need to go play with this stuff every day. Just
Mhm.
play. And it doesn't have to be always for work. It could be write a kid story for me or write a song or a bedtime story or tell me more about Tom Cruise in this movie or the Pixar or like take the Pixar story and make it my kids, whatever. The more you play with it, the more you understand the possibilities. And that like I do a Camp Vantage live now, which is like kind of a crowdcast thing where the whole goal is Tuesday mornings we help owners and operators with use cases. And we had a good call yesterday where we were going over like just use it to generate upsells for your property. And so we picked the property out of random on Google Maps. It ended up being, I think, Mystic Quarry near Texas, New Braunfels area, Canyon Lake. And we said, go learn everything you can about this property, come back, do a report on it. So we used Claude 4.5 and did all that. And then we said, now like come up with like upsell packages that I can use. Give me 10 that are related to romance or family or adventure or something like that, and justify why they should be done this way and how much they should cost and why people would be willing to pay for it and why they wouldn't be willing to pay for it. And it
Mhm.
gave out like really great examples of like it put everything together that's basically like give me all the marketing copy for it. And then we had to go out, and Randy Hendrickson was on the call, who may or may not be watching this show too. But he was like, let's do a follow-up prompt with it and say like, well, who within a 30-mile radius, go browse all the websites in my radius and tell me who's doing some kind of thing similar to this. Do they have packages that are better or worse than mine? Is there anything that competes with me? Can I take all their business if I deploy these packages? I mean, and then we did that in the scope of like 8 minutes at the end of the show. And we had this whole Mystic Quarry property with like all these upsell packages that they can use and all this advice. And so it's just crazy. Like if you just step back for a second and pause and breathe and say like, what is something that I'm struggling with at my business? Just like to your point, Ari, can I do it better? Almost certainly with AI, if it has to do with the other side of a screen and soon robotics,
Mhm.
then like stop thinking about it like, what can I automate? Because if you do that, you're falling into a trap of like you don't think it can be automated, so you don't ask the question.
Mhm. Yeah,
Falling,
that's a great one, man. Like, assume anything can be automated. Start from there and move past that. That's a really good point. Like, just focus on your problem and find somebody who can describe how to solve it computationally.
how do you think about this, Scott? Do you have anything to add?
To build on what Ari's saying there, I mean, we were just talking about this earlier today about the whole idea of asking questions. Because in research, I mean, it's the foundation of everything we do. You start with question, and then you continue to ask questions, and you never stop asking questions. And that, to me, is kind of what, when I think about AI, that's what it's all about. You're asking questions. You're always questioning, and you're having conversations essentially. And that to me is really what it's all about. If you want to learn stuff, you have to ask questions. Because, and I tell people all the time, if you have questions, ask me. I invite anyone to ask about anything I do. And I tell them too, whenever you're doing anything, start asking the right questions and asking the right people the right questions. And in this case, you have all these tools now in front of you that are so amazing in terms of getting information and answers. The answers are right there. You just have to start asking questions.
All right, let's get into you, Ari, for a second, if you don't mind. We're going to pick you apart a little bit. Before we get to Balance Farm and everything you're doing now, how did Ari get to the point where he is today? Like, talk us through your backstory. Where did Ari come from?
My origin story, a lot of bumbling and missteps.
That's everybody's origin story if they're willing to admit it.
That's literally that was the secret to my success was good fortune, good timing, and the secret to my failures was bad fortune, bad timing, and some wrong think on my part. But I guess a little bit on myself. I started out in genomics, at the University of Washington, and then I transferred over to MIT to study first bioinformatics and then computational science. And I was interested in computer science at that point because I saw it was really just simple. It's like, oh wow, you can get paid like $40, $50 an hour as a kid to write some code for people. I thought that was amazing. And this is back in the late 90s. That wasn't the strongest motivation to change gears, but it made sense. And then I really got enamored with it. Started up a company out of MIT's entrepreneurship department, or like their competition thing was run out of Sloan. And we got funding and then sold it to a subsidiary of Microsoft. And that's where I got to actually really do some actual AI work. While I was there, I was the solutions architect running their Verizon Wireless, the technical pre-sales group, and got to implement AI into Verizon's call center. And I was just blown away by, and this is crude, ancient AI by now. Like this was something I had a team of people working on, and we were so impressed that we could like dynamically route calls to the best agent, that was suited to amongst their like 50,000, CSRs, and that'd be like, I don't know, 2 hours worth of work now, but that was a 6-month project, and you saw 7-figure impacts like per week on that. It's just wild. And so I was like, okay, that's the future. And at that point, I was just waiting for my options to vest so I could even start a data sciences company, and that's what I did. And I hunted down some kids that were a lot smarter than me. I found able to connect with Macedonia's math and computer science, like Olympiad champions. So I basically hired or sponsored these unbelievably talented mathematicians and computational scientists, and built my whole company around them. And I had them with me, like the captain of that math team and the head of the engineering group there, who were, again, like they were children at the time. They've been with me for over 15 years. We've been tackling, just doing turnaround work. It was like anytime a company like an Accenture or an E&Y or Microsoft Consulting, when they would tend to fail with AI projects, we would just come in and pick up the pieces. And that was my entire business model for most of my time. Now I'm kind of like, I don't want to say half retired, but I'm focusing so much more on hospitality, because once I met the love of my life, my wife, who's like a expert in luxury hospitality and has some amazing spaces, like award-winning stuff, that I just got so enamored first with her, and then with her passion for it, and it made me realize that I am very much the type of person who is like service oriented. I really like it when with the skills I have, that I don't have her eye for design or aesthetic in any. I mean, this is as good as my aesthetic gets. But in terms of like deploying my technical capabilities to enhance what she does, we found a really nice synergy there. And I just love when people get benefit out of the capabilities that I'm able to deliver. It's just a different kind of feeling than I got when I was doing just technical, like software engineering consulting for clients.
So we will get to, because that's a really interesting story. I heard some of it, obviously not all of it, at the glamping show. But set us up, like what did Fat Rat do when you were all in, and then like what did?
I mean, I'm still all in. It's just that I'm really spending a lot of my time with the hospitality, because my team is so good. They basically don't need me much anymore. Like I just, I'm like the front end to the clients. Make sure that they understand. Like I'll do the solutions architecture and sort of describe the system at a conceptual level. then convert that to functional specifications. So Fat Rat, we've done work for, I don't know, the U.S. military, like the Navy, Samsung, Huawei, LG, tons of, like, we focus a lot on the Fortune 500. Now we're doing smaller like businesses and doing more like joint venture collaborative stuff because you get to like benefit on their success. So we're doing more recently over the last like 3 years. We've been focused pretty heavily on life sciences. So we're working with this phenomenal drug discovery company, working on a cancer research project that we just presented at a pathology conference, and just like sort of we developed a pretty strong skill set in that area, and it's something that my team and I love doing. So but of course we still do a lot of the other types of work, like we're cryptocurrency, trading platforms and that kind of thing. So it's pretty much all over the map. We just sort of like are generalists, and then domain experts come to us, say, okay, we have a problem in hospitality or in training or manufacturing, supply chain, ERP, whatever, or robotics, and then we'll deal with whatever that problem is. If they come to us, it means that their traditional avenues probably failed, and they needed somebody who was probably thinks a little bit different, more multidisciplinary, and more flexible with dealing with the vagaries of what a challenging implementation can look like, and all the messiness that comes with it.
Have we ever talked about crypto and blockchain on this show, Scott? I feel like
no.
Yeah.
I think maybe like that much. We did
probably
once
should at some point, because I feel like we're already over people's heads. We might as well just go all in. With even though blockchain is really not that hard to understand, it's just a shared database that everybody can edit with millions of copies everywhere. But anyway, like it would be really interesting, because that's something that like I've been in for a while, but like I just started to pay more attention to in the last few years. I was playing around with, there's a cryptocurrency, and this is not financial advice, don't take it that way. But I was looking at, have you ever heard of the cryptocurrency Ondo, Ari?
Ondo, no.
It's really interesting. It's backed by BlackRock and JB Morgan and a few other people, and they're basically trying to, they are tokenizing US treasuries and tokenizing like Apple, Tesla stock. Mm-hmm. And so the SEC is all in on this, and like it's currently trading for 47 cents a coin. The coin may not make it to like the company will make it, but the coin may not end up reflecting the value. There's lots of risk in cryptocurrency, but it was really interesting to me. It's one of the few ones that I've seen has an actual like revenue model and backers and like lots of energy behind it, and like tokenizing stocks is clearly the future.
Tokenization is the part that I'm interested in. I don't like trading stocks. I mean, again, I build these things for others, because we're a team of mathematicians and we're comfortable with these concepts, with high frequency trading, whatever. But it's not something I'm particularly interested in myself. But tokenization is something that I'm wildly interested in as it pertains to real estate. Like, tokenizing assets. I think it's something that, short-term rental operators, people who are doing like fractional timeshares, I think that they are just going to absolutely love. Like, again, whatever your feelings about the current administration are, the progress that has been made relative to, putting sane regulation in place for crypto and by extension, like tokenization capabilities, it's been just such a wonderful move forward, and it's opened the doors to opportunities that you just couldn't get a hold of. So you can look at like fungible tokenized assets, like a share of a property or a bond. I don't know if your listeners understand where, maybe this is something a little deep, but or like non-fungible.
Let's go to ChatGPT and say, summarize this for a 12th grader when you're done.
Yeah, like it's like ELI. But this is like something everybody who is in the hospitality, glamping, and short-term, you would think, why does that matter? It absolutely matters, because if you're looking to expand, which, business kind of probably really can't stay static, you're kind of growing or you're dying, you are going to want to take advantage of the unimaginable amount of capital that already is and is going to increasingly be made available by way of tokenization. So it's 24/7 tradable, it's global, it's blockchain enforced ownership, it's instantaneous. I mean, imagine you build a property and you can put it onto a tokenization market place where people without intermediaries and in a frictionless manner can buy fractional ownership just on a public market space, and they get guaranteed ownership in the form of smart contract delivery like that. That's like
intermediary like
property. You know how annoying it is to deal with it normally. Like, this is like, it's going to be a new world with this stuff, and a really exciting one too.
Yeah, it's not going to be intermediary like stocks either. Like you're going to be able to buy a tokenized stock in Apple. You actually own the Apple share. Apple will know that you own the Apple share, and then Apple can give you perks for owning the share. Like you hold an Apple share for 5 years, you get to go have dinner at a meeting with.
I think there's so much. Yeah, there's so much that can be done with this. It's that part. I'm really excited about that. I think one of the things that people probably need to. Actually, I want to revise my answer to the question you asked earlier.
You can do that.
What's
That's
the one thing I think like that glamping operators, hospitality operators need to know about? I think they need to get really comfortable with the fact that they always keep learning, which I think for a certain type of person is like a thing that they love. And I suspect that represents all three of us. But for a number of people, it's like you kind of want to just sort of sit back and just take a breather. And I don't think you have that luxury as an entrepreneur in this space anymore. And that's a good thing, actually. I mean, even we were talking earlier about longevity. You will live longer if you keep challenging your brain, if you keep having to figure out new creative ways to do things that force it's provably delays or helps prevent like the mental decline and whatnot. And it's fun. So I think that operators need to get comfortable with the fact that there's no new normal. It's just except that it's always changing and you got to keep learning. But if you keep learning, the opportunities are wild. And this is the slowest and most boring and least number of opportunities that we're going to see right at this moment. There's more right now than there was 5 seconds ago. And that's not hyperbole. That's really what's happening.
Yeah, I think that's what scares a lot of people who watch this is like they bought, in my mind, I will say this. I say this to a lot of people, and maybe I've never said it publicly, but I feel like there's a difference between an entrepreneur and a small business owner. Not that one's better than the other. They're just different. Is that fair?
It's absolutely fair, but I don't think it's a distinction that can effectively exist anymore. And I know, like, you could have a small hardware store 50 years ago, and you could run that same store for 50 years exactly the same way, and you could do probably quite well. My wife's dad ran a hardware business. I love this guy. He had passed, a few years back, but wonderful, wonderful guy. And he would talk about his store, and I'm like, I can't imagine a business like that. Like how many businesses that were like the top 20 businesses now even were in the top 20 like 20 years ago, I don't know, 50% less. It's just wild that you cannot count on anything remaining the same, and you have to constantly be re-educating yourself. Like you never stop going to school. And that's either terrifying or not, but I think that's why something like Outwired has to exist. It's like tell people what they need to know really quickly. Let a bunch of nerds get together and we powwow about stuff. And hopefully we are telling people what they need to know so that they're not just like keeping pace, but they're now leveraging what they learn to make their own businesses and their own lives better.
Well, I think that's what scares some people here is we have the people who you're right. That's why I was throwing it to you is because I think that line for sure has to be like completely gone now. Or very shortly. Like, I mean, it already kind of is in my mind. But so if you're a small business owner, though, and you got into it not to move at that speed, that's where I think you have to, and you're looking at us, you're looking back at people like me and people like Ari and people like Scott, and you're like, no, I don't want to. You don't understand. I bought a campground because it's supposed to be peaceful and calm and chill. And like, that's the one place where is my sanctuary. I don't want any technology. Get the fuck away from me.
Right.
And it's coming for all of us now. And there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Yeah.
So how do people like that approach that? Like, I don't want to do it, but I understand I have to. Where do I even begin?
This is a problem that I guarantee Scott and I, just by virtue of where we are geographically, we see this. I don't mean to speak for you, Scott, but I can't imagine it's not true what I'm about to say. Like seeing people in more rural environments who have no idea of what a wave of, they might think a wave of shit, but like a wave of stuff that is going to fundamentally transform their lives or like make their entire profession obsolete. It is genuinely concerning to me, and I've spoken with the mayor of major city in Newport, like really good guy. His wife heads up the fiber optics initiative. They're trying to get people connected, but these I think governments in general are not doing nearly enough to prepare people, and especially people in rural areas where they don't. My neighbor doesn't, she has a dairy farm. God bless her. She doesn't have a cell phone. She asked my mom passed, like I said, recently. as well. But my mom, who was at the time like 89, helped the dairy farmer learn how to use her cell phone. Like that's not what should be happening, but it should already be something that and not trying to push technology on people, but a lot of these folks here, they have no clue. They think this is some other fad. They think it's like, oh well, you had the first industrial revolution, then the second industrial revolution, and then we got the assembly lines and Bessemer process, and then we got automation. This is not any of that stuff. This is like commoditized intelligence. That's like humans were always operating the equipment. So we were operating a horse and buggy, then we're operating a car. Like now it's like take that intellectual layer and say, you know what, we got a better thing that is gonna that'll take over. So don't you worry about doing the thing that you built your life on. That's what so many of these folks do not understand. And I wish that there was some outreach that was just focused on getting governments just to wake the hell up and realize you are doing your citizens a disservice if you are not actively promoting it. Like in schools, like education is a whole other problem. Like, what is that guy? But in schools, they are trying to, at least with the schools that I'm around here, they're trying to restrict access to ChatGPT.
Yeah, they block it.
What do you like? It's nonsense. It's like, to me, this reminds me when I had like a TI-81. You like program, you could write. It had one of those calculators with big screens, and you could write little stuff. I do. My buddy Dr. Lee and I have known him for like over 35 years. We would have little competitions. That was like cheating. If you bring a calculator like that into a class, this is just recognizing the realities of the world we live in, and the government and the local all the way up to the state governments. I just don't think that they are nearly engaging enough to prepare people like this. And again, Scott, I'll pass to you today. Are you seeing that same thing in Maine? Because it's wild.
Yeah. Before Scott answers, the only person on government level that I've seen is Bernie Sanders, and he for sure isn't reaching the rural communities.
Well, I mean, he's out here, and he's well liked around here, and he's talking about AI in a way that I think most people in his generation are not, which is good. But he's one voice, and it's not permeating to the rural collective.
No, he's speaking on the Senate floor, and they're kind of like, you can imagine, even though they're not showing the gallery, that the 4 people who are in the Senate room listening to him are smirking, or at least half of them are, right? So, Scott, please.
Oh, just for an anecdote to introduce my point of view on this, the town I live in Maine was the last place in the U.S. to have a crank phone. And in the town center, there's a monument to it. There's a gigantic crank phone right by the post office in the middle of town. When they brought in phone technology, it was resisted. They had to go to the legislature to make it happen. This isn't a new phenomenon. I've seen it in my entire professional life. I saw it when I was in grad school, and you see it here in the rural areas. The only thing they want in terms of technology is fiber optics, so they can watch TV. But yeah, there's a real striking fear that I see and hear in places like this, that people have a real tangible fear of AI and of the technology. And that fear comes from the unknown. And
I mean, people like us have fear too. To be clear, there's a reason to be.
Yeah, sure. They know to have fear. So you're in a much more advanced place than I am. Like, at least they know to be afraid there. Like, they don't even know it's happening. It's like there's like a mute button around this entire state. It feels like nobody even seems to know that this wave is coming. And I don't know. I just want to like go to the governor and be like, "Yo, we need to talk, dude. Like, can you like snap out of it? Like, step on the gas. You have all these like natural resources. Build some data centers. Put some nuclear power here. Let's
that attitude is very prevalent here. It is the resistance to any kind of infrastructure changes, like I said, other than fiber optic, is really, really strong. People feel like there's this fear that their life is going to change, that their lifestyle is going to be taken away from them. Sorry about the dogs.
It's a very valid fear. I have that fear. But
and that's fine. But when there's a vacuum of information, people fill in the blanks. Yeah. And the next thing that they're looking at is, Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to be marching down the streets as, um, wiping out the entire town. And, because there's a lack of understanding, and it doesn't, some of it, the fear isn't even coming from the point of view of, job loss or anything like that. It's just, my world is changing. And and
I don't want it to.
And I don't want it to. No, in Maine, if you look historically, they wanted to build a transmission lines, and it was voted down. They wanted to build a better east-west highway. It was voted down. So all those kinds of infrastructure improvements are consistently voted down. And there's I've done focus groups in these areas, and I'll tell you what, it's really interesting to see it, because and everything you've said, Ari, it rings so true. It's there's a big vacuum here. A big vacuum.
Super problematic. I mean, they don't even know. The idea like that there's both the real threat that we would all be worried about, and then there's the threat, not to put us on some different pedestal, but at least we're like sort of cognitively aware of the sort of the form and the shape of the threat and the opportunity. But then there's the threat from a perspective of just unknown. Like, they don't even have a clue what it is. They just know something's happening that's not going to allow them to live the way their grandfather or their father, did. And that's a very reasonable fear. And it's something that, to a large extent, I think we could help address if there was an acceptance that this is something that we actually have to talk about versus burying our head. But I just feel like this is a political problem. I think the people here, I mean, when I moved,
you can't change it at an individual level. You can't change it at a town level. It has to be federal or state.
Exactly. When I first moved here, they called, like, if you haven't been here for like 4 generations, you're called a flatlander, which is an amusing term, right? I think it's funny. It's like, to them that means something. I'm like, okay, if you're gonna insult me, use a real insult. I like the sound of laughter. Like, all the people cared about here. They're really wonderful folks in Vermont. Like, the stories you've heard are true. Like, this is probably the nicest state on the planet. People do not bother you, and you can do crazy cool development because there's like so few regulatory laws except for like Act 250. But the thing I would say is that all the people here care about when I moved in, because my wife and I bought a lot of property here. Like, we bought like 543 acres. They were just worried that we were going to change things, that we were going to do things differently. And once they got it, after like the 4th year here, and we were helping our neighbors helped us, and there was like floods, whatever. Once they got a sense that things weren't going to change, then they're your best friends. They'll like come help you in any kind of situation that, like, it would never happen in LA or Miami, place that, like, you couldn't even go to the neighbor in your apartment and say, hey, my pipes, and they're like, why are you bothering me? Here, people care. In rural communities, they really do care about their neighbors, but they don't want disruption. And that's a problem because their governments are not telling them that disruption is coming whether they like it or not.
What do you think about, you're talking about community, and this is something that interests me. What do you think about the idea of AI being able to actually help us bring back community?
I think quite a bit about it. In fact, what I'm trying to do with my wife here at Balance is integrate AI to create a micro community. Like that, we're trying to create a template for a sustainable luxury AI powered micro community. And the same things that I do I just talking, even just talking briefly with you guys about this, I think you're probably doing exactly the same kind of work. Like, you're building these agentic systems for enterprise clients, and I've built like agentic CFO and COO and like manager. So it's almost like a co-pilot for people. In some cases, it can be a full replacement, but for now, it's more like a co-pilot that helps somebody do their job more effectively. And these things are really, really performant, and they can turn a person. They can like sometimes like 5 or 10x a person's productivity. Well, that is what we think needs to happen at the community level. You need to have agents that are helping you across the board, agents that are helping you manage your farm, that are helping you understand how to optimize your procurement of, like, if you're in dairy, like, what's the best pricing model to use. Like, you can take advantage of capabilities that you don't even have to understand. You don't need a degree in economics to ask commoditized digital intelligence how to optimize your business. So integrating that into the business functions that people do engage in rural communities, and to use it to sort of stitch together social fabric That is what I think would make people so much happier, where they could go to their agent and say, "Hey, who else? Who around me might be interested in like a poker night, something trivial or fun, whatever?" And it could go talk to the agents of the other people in the area and say, "Oh,
Mhm.
well, they got to be up at 5 to milk the cows or for the to get the hay." But this group is like, "Hey, who's got availability?" And just have the agents do a lot of that bridging of that social network, that physical social network. That is what we're trying to do that here, and we think that that's something that would maybe be sort of like an entry point or a beachhead to get people in rural communities comfortable with the benefits rather than just the fear stuff that they'll hear about.
Yeah, that personalization is really interesting. Like, I remember watching Tom Billio's show at one point, and he had this idea at the end. He was like, "This is a multi-billion-dollar idea. Somebody needs to build a dating app where you connect with the person on the other end, like you swipe right, swipe left, whatever. You both mutually agree, and then instead of going on a first date, your agents just talk back and forth in like about 10 minutes, the conversation you'd have in 6 months, and figure out if you really are a match."
Yeah, I had this exact conversation. I'll for just out of respect, like an extremely high-ranking individual from a big five firm, and I mean at the highest level. We spent an entire week discussing this exact idea, and the I think the only reason we didn't end up doing it is because we're both happily married. So it's like, well, what's the motivation to build something? You
Yeah,
kind of want it to be personally, but I love the idea of it as a friendship slash business networking. Like,
that
why
too. Yeah,
LinkedIn, not just agentic? Like LinkedIn's business model. I don't want to pretend to understand their business at any level of depth, but you think most business models are still probably predicated. Okay, we gotta get ad views and clicks and this, and so it doesn't help if the agent is browsing for you, but if there were, for putting aside how the business model could work, imagine a LinkedIn that was looking for friends for you that understood you, which in 10 minutes I could tell my AI everything it needs to know about me to do a better job of finding friends than I could do for
yeah.
me. Just have it go mine on LinkedIn and find people that I could connect with, find business opportunities. That is extremely cute. I love dogs. And like, why are these agents not already out there? I think it's just because they haven't nailed the business model, because the tech is absolutely there, and what you're talking about should already have been built and delivered.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun, interesting world. But I think there's two reasons that I asked that question. One is the one you talked about. Two is the more like, I think there's a very clear future, and probably we don't want to delve into this too much because we've already maybe scared people enough on the show. But there's a very clear future where work is optional, right?
Mm.
Where you no longer have to work anymore. And I think at that point, people are going to look for a purpose, and I think that purpose could be more involvement in the community. So I think that ends up being like a net positive benefit, right?
You've been listening to a lot of Diamantis, right? I'm a big fan of his podcast. I think that the abundance ideas, I like them. I do think I fall more towards like the Gaudat side of things, and that there's going to be a lot of disruption to get to that
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, for sure. That's not gonna happen tomorrow, right?
we will have a. I do believe that money as a concept is really like on a limited lifespan here. Because the cost, just look at the productivity gains you get by deploying like these robotic systems, and then the cost is just going to come down, especially as everything gets more efficient, easier, cheaper to develop energy, or energy solutions for these systems. Intelligence is getting cheaper. Like, it's going to be of just not much point to humans doing things. Oh, sorry. Um, and just sorry about that. And when that point is reached, then people are going to be in this situation where they say, okay, well, hopefully there's something that's kicking out some value drivers that let me get food and have shelter and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
But until we get to that point, I think that it's going to be really chaotic, and there's going to be massive disruption. And I think that like social
Yeah, we're on
fabric.
the same page. We're on the same page. Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember Diamandis ever saying that, but I for sure heard that on a podcast somewhere.
Oh, he's all about abundance and everything else like that. I think that he focuses very much on the good part of it, which I think people in certain circles, probably like the kind of circles that certainly circles he's in, and probably that we are close enough to, like we get to take advantage of these things. But for I think most people, it's just going to be downside until we kind of like see through to the other side of that.
So the government starts talking about it, and we create a plan, and we figure out how to do this together. I ran
Yeah.
this exercise through Claude, I think, 2 weeks ago. And it was like, we need to start talking about this now, because the type of governmental change and regulation and how to re-educate people and how to teach people what they need to do and all that shit tastes like Claude didn't say shit, I don't think. But anyway, that was my word. It takes like
Well,
10,
again, spicy.
20 to 30 years, right? For government to implement all this stuff, to retrain people that they don't need to learn skills. They need to learn how to teach themselves stuff. And like just that fundamental undertaking and this change is happening in what, 2 to 3 years max?
I mean, yes, but the problem isn't. I think people could be retrained really quickly. I think the problem is governments. There's so much bureaucratic and like sort of self-dealing nonsense. Like nobody in power wants to give up power for something that's going to be more efficient and make them useless. And these are the people at the top of the stack. Like the politicians will be the last to go. Right? They'll be the ones that hold on to their jobs by virtue of regulation and like regulatory capture versus actually, oh, I really need this human making a decision. Like I think judges are it's very common for them to just use the recommendations that come from those, like they have these software systems which look at a given case and say this is what the ruling should probably be. Like that's a thing that is going to happen across the board. And then you say, well, why do I even need this judge in the first place? If 98% of the time you're just taking the recommendation that the engine spit out, why are you there? Once people are comfortable with this stuff, and I can already look at my daughter and my son, this is second nature. They're not like scared of AI, like older folk like myself. We're like, oh, gee, what's this gonna do our world? They're just used to like talking to their computers and having them respond in normal tones and joking with them and being friendly with them. It's a different world that's coming, but for the people in power have negative incentives to embrace any of these things that would absolutely make the lives of the citizens that they're supposed to represent better. And that's the big problem in my mind is they're not going to change no matter how good or how much sense it makes for them to change because it personally takes away like their livelihood.
Ground us here, Scott. Talk to us in non-geeky terms for a second.
Oh no, I'm taking it all in because it's. I mean, it's when the power brokers are the ones that are going to determine the direction that this goes, and obviously they're already doing that.
Well, I mean, look at China. Look at how China's regulating AI. Like it's more of you talk about the loosening of restrictions on the right side and all the things Biden was doing to hamper AI and hamper crypto. And I agree with all that. Like it's all a reset. I've told Scott before, like as much as I think Donald Trump is a despicable human being, I think we look back on Trump in 20 years and we're like, fuck, we're really glad we had him with AI because America would have been something. I don't know what it would have been under Biden.
Like, that's exactly what I said. Like most of my family was like very not like I'm not a political person at all. I just want to like live my life and do things I like to do. But most of the people in my extended network, they would not be considered fans of Trump. At least on the business side, it kind of flips. But I can tell you that if he just made like $5 billion through some like dirty dealing crypto thing, you know what? Honestly, good, because it probably unleashed $5 trillion worth of value. I'd rather like a politician is openly incentivizing themselves, but doing things that benefit this country than doing like backdoor deals that just benefit them. Like I genuinely don't care how much he benefits personally, regardless of what the rules are supposed to be, whatever, as long as we recognize, because he's recognizing or being
people around him are recognizing,
huge threat. Like there's the U.S. and there's China. One of these two countries is going to control the future of commoditized intelligence and by extension, the world. That's not an overstatement. We don't have the luxury of hand wringing about like a politician, like, doing some kind of nonsense because we just need things to keep going exactly like they are. Like keep the regulatory environment really flexible, keep driving forward. Like when he did that thing where he's like, okay, NVIDIA, you can sell second gen chips to China, but you got to take, I don't know, 50 or 40 billion bucks or whatever and give it to like Intel. Like that's not what I think a president is supposed to do. But thank God he did that because Intel is like, we need our own fabrication capability. So these things, which maybe they aren't technically legal or whatever, I just don't care. I want to see our country win. I want to see us be successful. And the only way to do that is to operate in a very similar manner as the way China is. Like, China's like, oh, we need to go into AI. You know, the president points and $1 trillion goes into AI. You can't compete with that in the US if you're going through regulatory things and the Democrats and Republicans are like jerking each other off and fighting. Like,
And there's
who gives
50
a- we
different
need somebody to
regulations
pick
and
up. Now
companies
we're
have
going
to
to fight
follow
against it. Like,
state by state by state by state by state. I want to let Scott finish, but the
Oh,
reason
sorry.
I brought that up was just because of the way the Chinese are handling AI that I've seen, and admittedly, I'm not far from an expert on the way China is handling it, but it seems like they're deploying it in certain verticals, whereas we're just like go after AGI and superintelligence all the way. And I think China is way more concerned about remaining in power than perhaps we are, or at least that's how the government reflects the decisions that I'm seeing publicly. But finish, Scott, please.
Oh, this is a topic that I'm very, very torn on, in terms of how my, just personally on the personal level, but I how I view it, and that is, I always look at what motivates people to do, at whatever level. I get concerned when the motivation is purely financial, because like who suffers in that situation. And I know what you just said, Ari. I mean, that rings true. I mean, I think about it. It's like doing it for the wrong reasons, but you have the right, the
very
right
anxious
result.
by the means.
It's
I
kind
didn't
of
like what I said, but it is.
no, but you have to ponder those things. Those are because, I mean, that's the quandary we're in right now. And as a country, in terms of regulation, we are, Congress holds all the, well, most of it. Well, I won't even talk about that too much. But the idea anyway of regulation, comes down to who makes the laws. Who gets to make the laws. And in this country, we have a lot of regulatory layers, and a lot of those have been stripped away. And again, I look to motivations. What's the motivation here? And my biggest concern from just to be the slightly contrarian is like, there's a real danger that the individuals get left behind. When you were talking earlier about bringing together communities and doing all these things, that's great. I love that talk, and I believe me, I hope it happens, but I worry that it won't, because if the motivations get tweaked in the wrong direction, we're all fucked, and that's what concerns me, just from being again taking the contrarian view, but I also fully understand where we're at, and being a somewhat competitive person myself, I understand that head-to-head competition, and you just want to kick their ass.
Well, Scott, I don't think you're being contrarian. I actually completely agree with you. I just would put it in the context of, okay, when the house is burning, I'm not going to go back for my wallet. But once the house is not burning anymore, then let me go get my wallet and my computer. Like, I feel like you're describing the biggest problem we have to worry about right after we worry about not getting crushed by China. Like, that's like number 2 is, how do we make sure that the people in power don't screw all of us over once we win this race? Is it just going to be like the United States of Elon, or like, I don't know what, like, I'm worried about that shit too, trust me. Like, but I just feel like we have to solve for the big problem, as much as I completely agree with you, which is why when we talk about the fears that people have in rural areas, or I think that just a general citizen, this kind of thing is, as somebody who does stay abreast of these developments, this is the kind of thing that I am afraid of. Is like, I'm afraid that it's a Pyrrhic victory. We win the AI race and then we lose relative to exactly what you said. That's my number one fear, is that the world that will be in some sort of Elysium type of scenario. It's like, yay, we won. And now humans do what they typically do, which is, once they have power, they want more power. So the U.S. wins, then the U.S. starts like, we have these goofy culture wars, like, who gives a shit? Like, but that's the stuff that we get like wrapped up in, and China's not doing any of that. So I'm still worrying about that first and foremost, and then I go right to what you said. That's like my next thing. As soon as we solve for this, this little existential, civilization thing.
It is, and I think many people don't understand what's coming, right? Like the existential nature of the issue of why it has to start with the U.S. and China is because the first country, and maybe it's a company, but let's just assume it's 2 countries right now. The first country who gets to super intelligence, there's not a far off scenario that says like, all right, China's got it, turn off the United States so that they don't have a god too. Like that's not a very far-fetched situation.
That's very true. Fortunately, there's a number of reasons to think that might not be how superintelligence works, but it could. It really could be though. That's the thing. Like, is it
at the stage of like why this is the number one thing, right? That was on our minds.
Yeah,
and
it's scary. It's really scary. But we got to roll with like we don't know what's coming. Like you find the best people in the world who are at like cutting edge, like on the tip of the spear of this stuff, and I'd be surprised if half of them aren't like, yeah, gee, I sure hope we don't like ruin the planet or kill ourselves. Like they don't know what's going to happen any better than any of us do. It's just game theory forces us into this situation that which
is a whole nother conversation. What I read, the stat I read was like the average AI CEO at these big companies has about a 20% chance of AI making humans extinct. Is what they're.
I'd be surprised if it wasn't quite a bit higher than that. That's probably what they put out, except for like Dario, who's a little bit more direct about his concerns. But I think for the most part, because I have conversations with like a lot of folks from family offices and whatnot, and like those are more like behind the closed doors type of things. They'll ask questions like this, and you talk to some of these leading folks, and my goodness, they are more. I would say more than 50%, or I'd say that it is they consider the majority likelihood is something that's going to be wildly problematic, not a good outcome, but like what's the alternative? There is none, because it's 100% that we're screwed if we just give up and let China win. At least there's a chance that we won't drive ourselves to extinction if we remain like in a leadership position. But there's just so many unknowns here. We just kind of have to ride this roller coaster and see how it plays out.
What do you think, Scott?
Yeah. Yep.
We're doomed. It's from Maine and Vermont. We're screwed, people.
This is part of the problem, right? Like I'm an eternal like optimist. For as much as I think
you are
this rough patch, for as
I'm
much
going to go contrary in here.
Okay.
No, you're not.
I am like on the other side of it, right? But we have to get to it. Like Ari is saying, we have to push through this process, and it's going to be ugly. It's going to be difficult. There's probably going to be pockets of violence here and there. Like people are going to not have jobs. Like, and so I'm torn here because I care about society, and that's why I bring things up like this on a show like Outwired, is because we need to have this discussion. Like if you look, I told you this, Scott, I think on a call, or maybe I told Greg on a call, where we were like the University of Zurich did that thing. Did you see that, Ari, in like April of 2025, where they put the bots into the Reddit thread forum?
Oh,
yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah,
Brian. Yeah.
So for the people who don't know, like the University of Zurich, and I'm like, I don't know, I do know all the details, but I'm old and forget. The University of Zurich put last year's chatbot-ish like agent tech into agents that joined the Reddit forum Change My View, which the whole point of the forum is to change your view on like political, religion, like serious topics. And they scored in the 99th percentile of changing views. And that was last year's models. So like, how does democracy function in a world where like Russia can just deploy 10 million bots to be your friend and change your view?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It becomes the absolute norm. It already is, but like,
it's already happening.
Really hard to trust it. Even your bit, like it used to be, you'd see visual evidence. Like you can't, like that uncanny valley is not such.
And then the counter argument is like, well, I'll just only believe the guy I can talk to across the coffee table. Well, how do you know he's not talking to 10 million bots? And
he's got a little earpiece in that's feeding him information, and it just becomes like wetware for the AI to relay. Frown now. Like
sit down with your coffee with your friends. Like, let me see your ears.
Yeah, it's going to be problematic, I think. But that's to the point you raised earlier. I think the idea of building community where you have like a personal relationship, that I think that AI can absolutely be a real force multiplier for good in that regard. And I think that's going to be critical because information, it used to be that it would take so long for information from one side of the country to get to the other, Pony Express and then letters, whatever. Like now information flows at the speed of light, but you can't validate it in time before new information is already overwritten and that stuff is dated. So I think people are going to be very numb to, and I think they already are, to things that seem crazy or outrageous. Like what could any politician do right now where we would be like, oh my goodness, like some people will be like, yeah, he definitely did that because I'm already predisposed to believe it. Others will say it's fake news, and it could be fake news. Like it could have been some generated thing, or it's just everything is muddy, and so trust and verification is so challenging. And I think that's going to become it's just another problem that we don't have sort of a collective stance on how we're going to deal with, which again kind of points to what China is doing a bit. Like they treat compute like a national survival resource, and they've integrated like government and academia and industry into like one machine. And while they are crushing dissidents and whatnot, they have more control over information flow. So you're getting a view of information that the government in power wants you to have. But you could argue that that's not necessarily worse than having complete like Thunderdome, like where you don't know anything. At least you say, okay, we know what this bias is, but it's gone through filters and whatever. So at least we know that we're getting some sort of reality that we trust from, our view of what is real is at least coming from something where we understand the biases. Right now, I would argue I have no idea what the bias, the information that I receive on a daily basis is, which is why I tend to just stick to like technical news because of stuff I can build an application.
Ground news every day. That's my like go-to. Like I don't know if that's actually accurate, but at least they balance the right, left, and stuff like that.
I'm on Hacker News. That's like that's where I want that kind of information just because it's like it's sort of a self-editing community in a sense. If somebody said something nonsensical, or 100 people jump on them. But hard to say lay out.
The way we work Outwired is we kind of like just keep having conversations until we're done having conversations, but there's a hard stop at like nobody ever goes over 2 hours if we need to. Are you good to continue for a minute, Ari? Or
let me see what time. If I was, I probably have like another 50 minutes. I have a 5:30 I need to prep for.
That's fine. Like we never ever go over 2, but we try to keep it like if we get bored and then we just don't have, we don't want to cut ourselves off, right? So I would love to just talk about Balanced Farm. First, how do you and your wife end up owning a glamping resort?
So my wife started like all of this. Like before I had even met her, she was doing customer experience stuff with. She worked for like Honest and I think MeUndies and Honey, like there's a bunch of companies as she was kind of growing her professional career. And on the side, she decided to do an Airbnb because she had some good experiences with it. I think this is like 15 years ago, and so she and her best friend from like when she grew up is this architectural designer. They built this unbelievable space basically by hand out in the middle of Joshua Tree, and it really blew up. Like it's in like design books. It's been featured in architectural design, like tons of different magazines. It's been on commercials and in TV shows, and celebrities have stayed there and gotten married there. Like it just went someplace that they weren't ever expecting. So then an investor came in. They built up a really like a super like luxury like micro community like resort out in Mojave, and they're currently extending and expanding upon that. And that's what when I met her, she was on the tail end of that, so I was able to bring some tech to it, and it just got me so excited. I was like, my goodness, like you can integrate technology invisibly into these beautiful environments, and it has an impact on guests. If it's a little thing like, okay, detecting a presence sensor that detects that there's nobody in the house, so now you knock down the energy, or you kill the power to certain things. Like you see those in your revenue, and it's good. It's a good sustainable approach. Or you like make sure the water is turned off, or you understand when the guests might need something, because you can see that even if you're monitoring the food that they're bringing back and forth into like the refrigerator, because typically the food is delivered to the guests because it's a really luxury place. So like the food will be brought in by the chef or whatever, and you're monitoring that, so send them. This person likes fresh squeezed orange juice and this and that in the morning, because we mine that from their social media, whatever. Like you can do so much with technology, and you can do it now in a way where it's completely invisible. So I became obsessed with this. I love the electrical engineering. I love the smart home tech, the IoT, and now with the commoditized intelligence that we can take advantage of in the form of these LLMs, like on-site, private, local, sovereign LLMs. There's like no limit to what you could do. Like if you gave me 10 years and technology didn't move at all, I'd still be incorporating the benefits of what we have today. So it's it became hospitality for two reasons became something that I became wildly obsessed with. The first was the opportunity to deploy all these cool capabilities that I like have developed technologically into something that actually impacts people, like where you can see it directly. Like we see the feedback from the guests and they come over, they're so thankful and they like that. It's just a beautiful experience to have that I didn't typically get. It's like, oh, you saved us $10 million. I'm like, thank you. They give you a bonus check or whatever. Like that's just not the same kind of thing. And then secondarily, when I look to the future, I do think that hospitality is, and I say this kind of as a blanket statement, which tends to be dangerous, but I think that hospitality in general, glamping, short-term rentals, fractional ownership, I think that that is one of the safest industries to be in, because no matter who it is that is like spending money, like people want authentic experiences. The more that AI takes over our life, the more that a world or an environment that allows you to reconnect with nature is going to be valuable. I just think it's a great investment ethically and financially. I just can't think of a much better place to deploy time or energy as I enter this sort of second phase of my life. And I think about what I want my children and their children's children to be able to take advantage of. And I think that it'll be human experiences are going to be at the top of that list. So buy as much land as you can, build some type of, you could do glamping, RV parks. Like we're looking at all of these things now because all of them represent really exciting opportunities to connect with people and to let people connect with nature.
What do you have data wise on this, Scott?
This is, by the way, Ari, I've worked in hospitality for quite a while, whether, and not just outdoor. I've worked in the, indoor hospitality too, as well for quite a while. And what you were saying is like, I'm like, yes, this is kind of what it's all about. And one of the hard things sometimes for operators to understand is that technology isn't going to take away the human experience. It's going to let you actually do it. And this is in our research.
That, Brian, that's your intro to this whole fucking thing, right? Sorry, Scott, continue. I couldn't agree more with what you just said. I love that.
And in our measurement, and we found this years ago, that when we could offer operators the opportunity to take away a lot of the drudgery, the tasks, the monitoring, all those things, they saw all their, because we measured everything. We saw their scores increase. We saw their retention, returns all increased. And it was all because they're out there meeting with people. They're providing the hospitality. They're meeting with them. They're talking to them. They're understanding, having those human interactions. And that's what people want. Like you said, having the chef bring out the food. That's what people still want. They want that. But you can use AI to help determine what it is you should be bringing out to them.
The AI told my wife that a certain guest, they were visiting from Japan. My wife, one of the things that she's like an expert baker. She's the most talented woman I've ever known. It's like she makes Japanese sweetbread. And so the AI suggested that she make that. Her and our daughter brought that over to them. They wanted to. They were so like enamored with it. At first, you see a cute little girl bringing you this, and like they were so enamored with just the experience, just us knowing, like it was like ready for them. They didn't ask for it. It just was a thing that the technology recommended we do, and we don't have time to go mining these people's social media. Like we have a lot of stuff to deal with. The AI saved us all that time. And it was a completely analog experience, cooking, bringing it over. Let's put it this way: they wanted to know if we were pre-selling units on the property, because that's exactly the experience they wanted for their retirement. Like it matters, like even economically. But putting aside that, which was pretty cool, just the fact that you can connect so deeply with somebody, and that the technology allowed you to do that in a more human way than it would have. If it hadn't been there, we wouldn't have done that. It just, because you never even talk to the guests. Typically, they don't want you interfering or whatever. You want to like leave them be. But now we engage with them in a way that our platform tells us this is something they will enjoy. So yeah, it makes a difference in a way that's positive. This is not just something to fear, even though that was like 95% of what we've been talking about. There is such great benefits to the customer and to your own operation if you really embrace these capabilities.
Please continue, Scott. Sorry, I did.
Oh no! This is that interface, that meaningful interface, and the ability to provide, as you mentioned, the authentic, curated experiences. That's what it frees you up to do. Sometimes I give people the example of just what I do in research, that the tools we have now to do research are so amazing that we can actually use our brains to do more analysis and more deeper exploration. Things that, I mean, there was a time when a lot of the statistical and data modeling was all theory, because we didn't have the computing power to actually do it.
Yeah.
I would not
have wanted to be Jeffrey Hinton in 1986. I would not have want to have been him. Fuck, I figured it out, but I don't have the chips or the data.
Right. It's like I remember having the first PC version of SPSS at the University of Connecticut. That tells you something there. But and how people gathered around, and it's like, wow, you can do this stuff like right here, right now. You have to, wait for a printout and know that you had one line of code error and have to go down to the printer room to find out where it was. And it freed us up to do more. And that's kind of the whole point. It's like it freed us up to do these things that we could never do. And the work that we do now compared to even 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, even, is just it's so far above. And I see the younger generation embracing this too, that they're much more aligned with a lot of what we're able to do, and they jump right in because they're comfortable with it. And whereas some other folks, it's a little bit more difficult, and it applies to hospitality. I am bringing this around, that when you talked earlier about having those fears and those that resistance, the idea is to anyone out there listening, if you're an operator, this is kind of what we're talking about. This is what it's all about. That these are tools for you to do your job, to do, as Jim Rogers said, to do what you do best, which is manage the campground. And that's, and it's there.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I still remember that convention. It was like 2000. I don't know if you went. It was like 2012 or 2013. One of the first KOA conventions I ever went to. Jim Rogers was up there, and he said to the room, he was like, "You guys need to spend more time walking around your parks and greeting your guests, because that's the data that shows us that they will be happier." All the things. And I still remember the conversation of most of the owners in that room was like, "Jim Rogers has no idea what our fucking days are like. We have no time to go do all that stuff. There's no way we're ever going to get that." And this is what we're saying now is unlocked because of this technology. Please.
And I did the research that he was quoting there, by the way, and he's the one who brought the idea to them of, he called it the leapfrog, which is, we're going to do all this stuff for you so you have that time. And now it's not just the human resources, it's the tools and the technology that's going to do that for you. That's the leapfrog that people have right now.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. I mean, even when you think about automation, almost feels like an old topic to talk about, but just because it's something that I imagine a lot of folks, I've heard quite a bit about. If you just think about automation as sort of the compression of human labor into these deterministic computational processes that maintain a very consistent performance across time and scale and variation in your environment, this is that force multiplier that I was referring to earlier. You can reduce all that operational entropy. It's incredible what can happen and what that frees up. Actually, I'm just hearing what I just said. Maybe said another way is think about machines that are just doing work automatically so people don't have to. These type of systems and cyber physical systems that are merging software intelligence with physical systems that allow your environments to sort of sense and compute and act, and that that kind of converge spaces into these sort of programmable assets that are controllable, or that have these controllable state transitions. Just think about what that means as an operator. Imagine your facilities, imagine your campground, imagine your RV park or your short-term rentals, where the houses are almost like organic entities, where they are conforming and hyper-personalizing to the guest without you doing it, just automatically happening, whether it's signaling that, this guest just fell as they were walking up to the front door, contact the owner, dispatch somebody to go make sure that they're okay. Like there's so much that is possible with incredibly inexpensive hardware and very readily accessible software. So there's great opportunities to really positively impact the way that your business is functioning. And I just hope we get to see more of that happen and less of like, conglomerates. And I think there's some really good reasons to think that it won't be what I'm about to say, but like conglomerate or large, organizations just swallowing up, smaller businesses. I like the idea of independent operators because there used to be like an information and capital and power dissymmetry, which I do not believe exists. In fact, it's the reverse. I guarantee that any of us can react faster than the biggest hotel chain on the planet, no matter how many resources they point at a problem. Just individually, I know that I can out deliver because I can build something and deploy it, and there is zero friction, zero bureaucracy, and the stuff didn't cost an arm and a leg. Like I can get very inexpensive components that, when you empower them with digital intelligence, become almost magical. But with that, I will have to jump. I'm so sorry. I should have allocated more time, but I definitely loved chatting with you guys. And Scott, great to meet you for the first time. And maybe we can,
Are we doing this again next week?
You could show me the rotary. Are
we doing this again next week, Ari?
Happy to do it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Ari. I appreciate it. I think we'll wrap up too, Scott. Like we've had a good conversation. We'll end with Outwired. So thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Outwired. It's really great. Ari, welcome. We'll see you back next week. Scott, great data points. Any final thoughts, Ari, for our audience before you head off?
Yeah. Make friends with a data scientist. Just do it. Like you need somebody who can help you. Like,
there's Scott. He's like, I need a friend. I'm in Maine.
Contact the good people at Outwired and say, hey, who can I talk to that will help? And actually, one last thing. I'm on the executive board of a nonprofit called it's a board that, or it's a company that tries to help people who are on the autism spectrum, and I can tell you that charities should be thinking about this kind of stuff as well. Like everybody should be trying to figure out how do we get closer to people who have the technical skills to really make a difference, because they're looking for domain experts. So in this context of glamping and whatnot, the domain expertise is knowing how to operate a glamping business. It's not something that everybody knows how to do, or at least not how to do well. So you take that domain expertise, you pair it with somebody who has the technical expertise, and incredible things can happen. So yeah, so Scott, Brian, set up some kind of thing where people can message you and say, hey, refer me to a provider I can trust that'll maybe do a free call and just explain some things to me. And maybe there's business to be done there. Maybe there's some charitable work that people can do. But I think it's just you got to connect with people who understand this stuff so that you can stay ahead. But
absolutely.
Final thoughts, Scott?
Oh, great show, Ari. Great meeting you. You added a different perspective in a lot of life here. And Brian is, I think, just giddy because he has someone who
he's drinking his liquor. He's fine. Okay, you and I don't even need to be here at this point, Scott. That's what would happen if neither of us were here. It's just
no. I love the perspective because you have the AI, the technical knowledge, all that, but also the hospitality. That's layered in, and I think I really like that perspective.
Yeah, we got to talk more about that next week for sure. So
yeah,
absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Outwired. We will see you next week for another one. Take care, Ari, Scott, and see you next Wednesday.
Pleasure, guys.
Bye-bye.